You're listening to episode number 64 of the Transform Your Life from the Inside Out podcast. This is a Monday Q&A episode, and the question this week is this. I constantly have the thought when things happen throughout my day that I'm doing something wrong or I'm not good enough. How do I stop that? Well, I picked this question because I'm sure many of you can relate to this, and at a point in my past, I could relate to it well. So if you can relate, keep listening. Hi, I'm Jim Fortin, and you're about to start transforming your life from the inside out with this podcast. I'm widely considered the leader in subconscious transformation, and I've coached super achievers all around the world for over 25 years. Here, you're going to find no rah-rah motivation and no hype, because this podcast is a combination of brain science, transformational psychology, and ancient wisdom all rolled into one to take your life to levels you've never thought possible. If you're wanting a lot more in life, to feel better, to heal, to have peace of mind, to feel powerful and alive, and to bring more abundance and prosperity into your life, then this podcast is for you because you're going to start learning how to master your mind and evolve your consciousness. And when you do that, anything you want then becomes possible for you. I'm glad you're here. So the common theme here is that I'm doing something wrong or that I'm not good enough. So I'm going to tackle both of these. And I really haven't tackled doing something wrong in any other episode, but I have definitely tackled over and over and over throughout this entire series or throughout my entire podcast, not a series, that, people get into all the time, not good enough. So I'm going to touch on that a little bit as well. But I remember, and the reason I picked this question, again, because many of you can relate, but I remember when I was in third grade and I got a call to the principal's office. And I remember walking there, and for some reason this story is still vivid in my mind. I remember walking there, and all the way there, my thought was, uh-oh, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? And the reality wasn't that I did something wrong. The principal told me that I was winning an award, and I should invite my parents to, I don't remember, an assembly or something like that. But for many years, I used to work from the place that, oh my gosh, I did something wrong. Now, I want to point out also, which I'll get into in just a moment, that my father in particular, as I think back, and this is a lot of years, but as I think back in my formative years, my father very much was about there is right in the world and there is wrong in the world. And the danger of that is, which again I'll get to in just a bit, the danger of that is that we tend to classify our entire life as either right or wrong or good or bad. And that's a dangerous place for many reasons, which I'll show you in just a moment. Even now, it doesn't bother me anymore, but I notice, for example, when someone says to me, my sister recently said to me, we need to talk. And it can mean anything. I mean, that's just her phraseology, we need to talk. But I noticed for a second that I'm like, uh-oh, okay, what does she want to talk about? Now, if she had said, hey, we need to talk about family vacation or Christmas or any of that, well, okay, that's one thing. But when she just said, we need to talk, I don't know about what, and my first inclination is, uh-oh, did I do something did I say something, did I do something in some way that wasn't pleasing? Now, I also dismissed it, but I want to point out that I'm not immune to any of the things that I talk to you guys about. I do also want to say that I have actually, years ago, I would have gotten to, oh my gosh, what did I do? What did I do? Okay, I need to call her. I need to email her. I need to this day and age, nah, I don't even get into it, but I wanted to share that with you that when she said we need to talk, and I'm telling you, I know through experience, it's literally about some family vacation or something that she wants to just chat about. Okay, so good enough and right or wrong are two very separate subjects. So what I want to look at first is right or wrong. This is something one of my coaches taught me many years ago, and I am going to talk about my brother-in-law, the shaman, in just a minute as well, lessons that I've learned from him. But one of my coaches many years ago said to me, and actually she said to me, I think she was one of the most influential coaches I've ever had. She said to me, you need to get off of this idea about right or wrong. Because Jim, what you do is you will look at something and you will say, well, there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. Now, what I know as well, for many of us and for me in the past, what that creates is doubt. because you're thinking, oh my gosh, I do not want to make a mistake. And if I do it the wrong way, then I've made a mistake. So therefore, let me procrastinate. Where I work from today, carrying the work even further for many years with my brother-in-law, the shaman, where I work from, and this is hard for a lot of people to get their mind around, is that there is no right or wrong or good or bad. There just is. Consider that. There just is. Your life. You're the one who charges things in your life with right or wrong or good or bad. Has nothing to do with the planet that we live on. I mean, do you think what I call Pachamama, which is Mother Earth, do you think she cares about whether you do something right or something, wrong? No. It's we humans that actually give meaning to things and we make things right or wrong. What I tell people is there just is. So this is a huge trap for a lot of people, as I said, and the reason why I have the sniffles here also, I have, as I said in one of my transformational coaching programs, I have not had a prescription or any need for medical attention since 1992. Literally, no pharmacology, nothing since 1992. And I was telling my students this, I don't know, last year at some point, and come December, I got the flu. And I haven't had the flu in 20 years as well, or a cold. And I got the flu, and I'm like, holy, and it hit me in a matter of seconds. And I'm like, wow, I don't remember, is this how bad it feels to have the flu? So anyway, I'm sniffling here a bit, so that's why you might hear the sniffling. So I guess, well, it's not going to happen. I'm traveling right now, and I don't have time for getting sick, so I need to do some self-hypnosis work a little later tonight, plus some natural remedies that I take. But right now, it's where it is. All right, so anyway, is the right or wrong when we get into that? And by the way, some of you I know are going to want to argue with this because you're going to want to argue from your moral authority. And if you're one religion, you might say, oh, that's bad. You shouldn't do that. And another religion has no belief or no thought on it. Therefore, there is no right or wrong. It's simply subjective. It comes with social tenets. It comes with socialization. It comes with cultures as well. You look at some cultures. You look at, for example, the Indian culture, where it's, part of the culture is where the younger kids, I believe it's the son, is responsible for taking care of the parents. And it would be, air quote, wrong if the son didn't. But over here in the U.S., you don't see the same thing. So obviously, it's how we charge it, meaning how we give it energy as a human being, and culture and everything else. But the right or wrong is a huge trap, and as I said, I've been there, and the reason why, as I was saying earlier, is that it causes doubt. And then when we get into doubt, what we get into is inaction. And then when we get into inaction, we get into no results. So as you can see, many times you are inactive and do not take action because where you're starting from is, oh my gosh, is there a right way to do this? Is there a wrong way? I definitely don't want to do the wrong way because if I do the wrong way, I may make a mistake. And if I make a mistake, I may look bad. And if I look bad, people are going to judge me, or they're going to laugh at me or ridicule me or say, I told you so. And every bit of that comes from the right or wrong paradigm. Unfortunately, I have seen people sit on the sidelines of life, literally, for years. And I do mean years, because they're afraid to make a wrong decision. And again, they're operating from right or wrong. And as I say that, does it apply to you? Do you get into the right or wrong? Do you get into, oh my gosh, the paradigm that I just went through? And if you do, my question for you is what has it cost you over the years? Now, I'm a master practitioner of what's called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. I'm sure I've mentioned it here at the podcast. It's basically what I call the psychology of subjective experience. It was created back in the 70s by Richard Bandler and John Grinder. And Richard Bandler, really, really, really smart guy. Richard Bandler said, and I agree with this, is that there are no mistakes, only outcomes. But many of us are so afraid of the mistakes that we won't even actually take action because we don't ever really sit and think, you know what? Okay, if I do this and I don't get if I make a mistake and I don't get the outcome that I want, most of us never realize that, you know what? We just redecide and we do something different, or we tweak, or we retool or whatever. But most people are so paralyzed by the paralysis by analysis that's sitting on the foundation of making a mistake. So I wanted to share that in our time together. Next, being good enough. The two biggest fears that people have are the fear of being good enough or inadequacy and the fear of abandonment, meaning are people going to actually reject me? So inadequacy and abandonment are people's two biggest fears. But what I want to share with you is this, is that you can only deem yourself good enough or not in the face of comparison. If you're not comparing, then how can you possibly deem whether you're good enough or not? Because guess what? It's relative to nothing. There's no way. And I want to share with you this as well. I had a roommate many years ago. We haven't talked in a few years, but we were good friends for a lot of years. And I said to him, I said, Brad, you know what? You have a PhD in comparison. Because everything that he would buy, everything that he would do, he would always preface it with, like for example, he liked to tinker with cars, and he bought an old used Porsche. And I was complimenting him on that. And he said, yeah, but it's not new. He's comparing. Everything was about his job, but I don't make as much money as he does. Or we don't have this, meaning he and his girlfriend, or we don't have that. Or, and one time he even said, well, I'm not like the best looking guy in the world, but I'm better looking than a lot of guys. And I mean, these are things that come out of his mouth and out of his brain. And his entire life was comparison. And that's why I said, Brad, if you had a PhD, it would be in comparison because you are amazing at comparing, and comparison is poison. I'm going to segue here a little bit. And, in all truth and fairness, I used to, not to the degree that he did, but I used to get into comparison. And that all stopped for me many years ago when I read something many, many years ago. I read something, and it was from an ancient healing art. And the author of this book said that, and again, this hit me like a ton of bricks, is that no two people have the same karma. And when I heard that, I'm like, whoa, whoa, that is true. We each have our own karma. I'm here living my lessons. You're here living your lessons. I know that I'd mentioned, I'm sure, on an earlier podcast, when I said that one time I was backpacking in Mexico, back when it was safe back in the 90s, and I saw this guy fall out of his wheelchair and he started crawling in the street. And my first thought was, and there were a lot of people around and people helped him, but my first thought is what is his karma? And then I look at Oprah Winfrey and I think, well, what is her karma? So when you look at it, you have your karma. Everybody in my industry has their own karma. They're all doing their own dance. So if you have your own karma and no one else has your karma, hopefully you can see that it's an absolute waste of time to compare yourself to anyone else because they don't have your karma. And this day and age, I'm sitting here thinking as I'm sharing this with you, and I'm just scanning, and I'm working on, I'm being aware as I'm thinking through this right now, and I don't compare to other people. And when I said I wanted to segue, the reason I don't compare is because personally, there's always going to be people that are fitter than I am and people that are not as fit as I am. There are going to be people that are better looking. There are going to be people that are whatever. There are going to be people that are older and younger and taller and shorter, and people that have more money, people that have less money, etc. So why in the world would I waste my energy comparing? I do not compare personally or professionally. I do have to tell you, though, there is one caveat there, and I say this jokingly. One of my good friends, he's a real, and I've coached him and I've mentored him for a lot of years. He's a health and fitness guy, and he's really, really big online. He's built a super successful company, and he came out to Dallas to visit, and we went to the gym. And I'm 54, and he's 36 and ripped. And I said, you know what? There is no way I'm getting naked at the gym in front of you. And I was comparing, and I'm just kidding as well. But there's no reason to compare myself to other people. Why? Because they're not me. And the same thing with you. See, I could tell you all day long, I could tell you to stop comparing, but you know what? It doesn't matter until you see the value in yourself and you see the self-worth in yourself. My brother-in-law, the shaman, his shaman, in shamanism, it's called a benefactor. So, for example, my brother-in-law, my mentor would be what's called my benefactor. And then his shaman who taught him would be his benefactor. And many years ago, his benefactor was talking to me. And this is what he said. It was very simple and very profound. Now, my brother-in-law is also what's known as a Nawal, Nagual. And by the way, if you go look that up or whatever, there's a lot of nonsensical stuff on Wikipedia. My brother-in-law works in the light. He's a healer. People come to him from all over the world for physical healing and spiritual growth energetically. And his benefactor said to me one time, he said, it doesn't matter what I can see in you. It doesn't matter what your Nawal can see in you. All that matters is what you can see in yourself. So consider that. So the question is what can you see in yourself? What I know is this, is most people can't fully see how extraordinary they are because they spend so much time getting into the things they've learned as a kid in terms of low self-worth. And when I say getting into, no one consciously says, oh, you know what, it's Monday at 3 p.m., I want to get into my low self-worth. But so many people live from low self-worth, which they've learned as a kid. They've learned in their formative years, anywhere from the time they were born till the formative years before about the age of 8 years old, and they spend so much time in their self-worth or lack of self-worth. And then what I've noticed also is most people have the propensity to see the worst in themselves. And I see that a lot. What a lot of people do is they compare themselves to other people. And as they're comparing, they're in their mind stacking, I'm stacking up myself against this person. And then what many people do, and I've been there as well when I was much younger, and many of you probably do this, is people stack themselves against others, and they usually put themselves lower than other people, never even realizing what gifts they have or what talents they have. I mean, I've seen people, I'm so blessed, and all the people I've come across over the years. I mean, I've seen some people do some extraordinary things, and they can't even see the value in that because they're so caught up in their self-worth that they can't see the value in the extraordinary things and what I call the life artistry they're bringing to the planet because they're so stuck in I'm not good enough or I'm going to compare myself to other people. And it just doesn't work. What I want to share with you here also, over the years, I've coached some very significant people. I've coached movie stars. I've coached Olympic athletes. I've coached professional athletes. I've coached, CEOs of billion-dollar companies. I've coached a lot of people from all walks of life, all the way from Wall Street to Main Street to people that are having a global impact. And I even mean in politics, and not politics, but let's say international diplomacy. I'll leave it at that. And I'm going to share with you is that everyone, for the most part, is the same. Everyone, whether it's a movie star or a billionaire or even a president of the United States, everyone is the same. They're just doing their best to get through their life. And, to the point of this whole podcast is so many are doing their best, but so many are struggling because they're working from they're not good enough and they're comparing themselves to other people. I read some research one time also where kids were asked to pick their own punishment. And what was interesting is that kids usually picked the worst punishment for themselves of the choices they were given when they were told, okay, here, pick one of three things for your punishment. Many times kids would pick the most severe punishment for themselves, and it was actually more severe than the punishment that someone else would have picked for them for what they did commensurate with whatever the behavior was. And so, as I said, we tend to do that. Now, let me go back here. I mentioned earlier about my father. We do live in a world of good and bad. Now, we could sit here all day long at a higher level, which is not what this podcast is about, and we could talk about lightness and darkness, and we could talk about the yin and the yang, for sure. No question about that. But when it comes to the moral, the moral on this planet, right or wrong, as I said, you can have two different religions and one thinks something's okay. If you look at, for example, some polygamous religion, they might say it's okay to have 10 wives. Whereas another religion might say, you know what, you only have one wife, one man, one woman for life, which most people don't do. Anyway, as you can see, it's completely subjective. So what I want you to understand is that it is you. It is you who charges your life with either I'm a good person or I'm a bad person. Somebody and it doesn't matter. Guys, first off, thank you for all the reviews. I'm very blessed. I'm not one of those people who goes and reads the reviews. I don't. And the reason I'm grateful for them is because the level of reviews, obviously I don't know the algorithms at Apple and all, or, here at iTunes, but the, the good reviews help me reach more people. And I'm very grateful for that. But somebody actually, and you know what? What's interesting is I've noticed, as I said before, is there's never really any bad reviews about the content. It's about me as a person. So somebody's making a good or bad judgment about me. And somebody wrote in one of the reviews that about me, they said I'm a bad person. They actually even said this guy's a bad person or whatever. And I just scanned over it. Literally, I didn't give it more than 2 seconds thought, but I chuckled and I even said I can use that at some point to show people that you know what, this person's working from good or bad. And I didn't even go there. Why? Because I don't know that I'm good. I don't know that I'm bad. I am just me. I just do what I do. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. However you would define that. No one's perfect. But you know what? I'm good enough as I am. And I know that because I have a ton of people that have downloaded this podcast. At current rate of download, we will hit 1 million downloads in our very first year. And I have to thank you for that, for listening and for sharing. But I want to go back to my brother-in-law here, the shaman. We were talking one day. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Nawal, Nagual. If you look it up, you'll find some things on Wikipedia talking about dark magic and stuff like that. And by the way, some people don't even believe in magic, and that's fine, but everything's energy, and that's physics. That's not opinion. And he and I were talking one day, and I'm sure he was imparting to me and upon me lessons about judgment and acceptance and all this. And he said, I am a sorcerer, I am a shaman, and I am a Nawal. He goes, some people think that I am the work of the devil. Some people think I'm a spiritual master. But it doesn't matter. I am what I am. And I want to share that with you. Whatever you are what you are. And that automatically makes you good enough. So consider that you are good enough exactly as you are. The only time you become not good enough is when you start comparing yourself to other people. Why? Because now you're comparing yourself to something outside of yourself, and there's always going to be someone ahead of you and someone behind you. So what I want to share with you is your takeaways are this, is when you compare, you put yourself in a poisonous trap of not being good enough. So please let that soak in. When you compare, you put yourself in the poisonous trap of not being good enough. And then when we think about doing something wrong, many times psychologically, that's caused when we were kids. Our parents were beating on us mentally or emotionally, or our parents were shaming us. Part of my father, even though, he was an alcoholic, and part of his operating strategy is that when he wasn't drinking and he'd go to work, he was into perfectionism and he did a very good job. My father was I think they call him repair specialist this day and age, but he's an auto body repairman. And my father always, when I was really young, was always about there's a right way and there's a wrong way. And he lived his whole life, by that. And he imparted that to me as a kid. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I think I did, is about good and bad also. All over the world, for a large percentage of the population, people that celebrate Christmas. My family celebrates Christmas not for any religious reason, what's actually zero religious reasons. We celebrate it for the opportunity to genuinely give from the heart and to gather and to have a good time. But even if you look at Christmas, what are we taught as children, very small kids, and I remember this. We were taught Santa's watching you, and if you're a good boy, then Santa's going to bring you X, Y, Z. And if you're a bad boy, then Santa's not going to bring you X, Y, Z. And from a kid, I read somewhere, and I agree with this, that this thinking is, and again, I'm not a religious scholar or any of that, but I read that this thinking is original sin. And again, this is not in any religious context per se, but it's air quotes sin because it's teaching people they're not good enough from a very early age. And if you're like a lot of us, that's how you were raised. And then today you're still living these paradigms because it's part of your unconscious identity. You're living these paradigms because you learned these many years ago. So I know that I already said it, but the takeaway is this, is that you can only be not good enough when you are comparing. And right or wrong is simply relative to culture or also comparison of some sort. Okay, so that wraps up today's episode. And Wednesday's episode is going to be about what I call, it's going to be titled The Biology of Success. Now, the reason I'm doing, this next episode is because I have a video marketing firm, and we've already shot a lot of videos, and that's what they titled it. And it's really the neurology of success. It's about brain-based habits. Because see, you might have heard me say before, you don't get what you want in life. None of us do. You get your habits. Everything that you have in life is habit. If you have a lot of money, that's habit. If you don't have a lot of money, that's habit. Everything in your life, and even health to a large degree, is habit. So the next episode is going to be about the neurology / the biology of success. And also, I don't think I've ever done it here. I'm going to refer a resource to you guys that I refer to a lot of my students in my transformational coaching programs. I'm going to refer a resource that will actually teach you how to use self-hypnosis to reprogram your subconscious mind and your identity. Again, I said it earlier, and I want to say it one more time. Thank you so much. Seriously, thank you so much for allowing me to serve. And thank you for allowing me to do what I call my dharma is. This is my dharma, to do what I do. But thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to do it. Okay, that wraps up this episode. I'll catch you on the Wednesday episode. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this entire podcast. If you're the kind of person who likes to help others, then share this with your friends and family. If you found value, they will too. So please share via your social media channels. Also, if you have questions, I'm here to assist. You can email me questions to support@jimfortin.com, and I may even use your question for a future podcast episode. Also, if you want transformational content like this daily, connect with me on Instagram. My Instagram name is I am Jim Fortin. Finally, I do have a personal request. I believe that we're all here to help others and to grow and evolve ourselves. Together, you and I, let's help more people. If you would please leave a review on iTunes, and a good one, by the way. I'd be grateful, and through your assistance together, we can transform more lives. Thanks for listening.